Okay, so today in this video, we are going to go ahead and take a look at my watercolor palettes. Now, watercolor is the main media that I use really, besides maybe I've started to get into gouache, and of course I love digital art and Procreate, but I am most familiar with watercolor. It's what I've used for years and what I'm continuing to use as I further explore like other media and become more of like a mixed media artist, I think, because I love to use them with Copic markers and watercolor and oh my god, well, they are watercolor, but anyways. Before I keep rambling, in today's video, I am going to swatch, dissect, and reorganize my watercolor palettes. So if that sounds like something that would appeal to you, then feel free to stick around. I'm more fluent. Feel free to call me Rory. I like to create dope art content and hopefully curate a chill atmosphere. And if you're new around here, hi, hello, how are you? And if you're not new around here, what is up, my dudes? Let's get into this video. So, I guess just starting with the supplies that I use, I always use my handmade watercolor palette and my professional watercolor palette, or like, I guess, professional in air quotes or whatever, because I don't know if I'm a professional artist, but it's the palette that I curated to not only have like, I guess, more official watercolors, but I understand their light fastness, and so that being like how fast they fade when in direct sunlight, and I understand their quality and what to expect with them, where with handmade watercolors, it's a little bit harder to totally get a gauge on what exactly those colors are going to look like or how the pigments are going to interact with the paper. So, if I were to ever create something that I wanted to sell, I would probably use my quote-unquote professional watercolor palette, where what you're seeing on the screen right now is my handmade watercolor palette, where most of these are bought from Etsy. Etsy has so many amazing sellers. I will try and find all of the names of the ones that I've purchased from, just so you guys have a list of sellers that I trust and personally really enjoy, but specifically Jasper Stardust and Poems About You have lovely colors, and they're the ones that this palette is predominantly full of, honestly. Jasper Stardust has beautiful pigments, unique coloring, and they're normally very vibrant and beautiful. Poems About You is more earthy colors, I would say, though they both have a vast array of colors. I would say that Poems About You has a smoother consistency, and you're gonna get less granulation and a lot more of a, personally, like, I guess a like professional, very high quality feeling watercolor, where Jasper Stardust's pack a punch. You get beautiful, unique colors, and he has just like, or I should say they have just a huge array of unique colors to pull from, but oftentimes I find that their pigments can be hit or miss in terms of like how pigmented they are, how light fast they are, the like, I guess light fastness, or maybe like the ability for the pigment to even actually stick to the paper, because some of them are very pale, I would say, and then the pigment in them, it's almost like it didn't get ground up properly, though I know it did because I know what I was buying, and what I was looking at in the swatches showed that same kind of weird granulation. But yeah, I would say that when it comes to my watercolor palette, my handmade watercolor palette, predominantly Poems About You and Jasper Stardust with a Z are the two people that I trust the most to create beautiful quality paints that I really enjoy working with. Originally, this watercolor palette started out as supplemental to my professional watercolor palette, and again, I keep saying professional in air quotes. I don't know if I should come up with a different name for it or whatever, but when it comes to this watercolor palette, this handmade watercolor palette, originally it was supposed to be supplemental. So I was choosing colors that were a bit odd, a bit strange, things that I thought would go well, or colors that I thought would go well with my professional palette, not like duplicates of the same color, especially because handmade watercolors can be so crazy expensive. But as I continued to grow the palette and collect more colors, I really wanted to have a palette that works together, something that I could pull out and use on its own. And so I kind of just started collecting all kinds of colors that I thought were beautiful, you know, even ones that maybe were similar to ones I had in my professional palette. And what ended up happening is that I love the colors in this palette more than the ones in my professional palette. And I'm actually having a really hard time replicating some of them in my professional palette, though I am really trying to. I believe I made a previous video titled like my 2024 art goals, and in that I broke open some of the new tubes of paint that I got for my professional watercolor palette, and one of them specifically was Earth Green from Daniel Smith, because this French green, which is the largest pan in the center of the palette that you can see, is basically gone. I absolutely adore this color, and I needed something very similar, if not identical, and Daniel Smith's Earth Green was the closest closest that I could find to that particular color. But that color isn't actually from either of the two stores that I've listed. I'll have to go back into my Etsy, which I tried to do before this, but it was giving me problems logging in. So I'll go back into my Etsy in editing and see if I can find, oh, you know what? I think it's Ruby Mountain Paint Co. I believe that is the name of the person with any of those large square pans. They are who I purchased from for those. But regarding the video, I was really, really excited to complete these swatches and to have some really cool, like, organized, put together palettes. I was just ecstatic because honestly, I hated that my palettes were so messy, and reorganizing them was really therapeutic. I begin completely reorganizing, cleaning, and just readjusting basically my entire professional watercolor palette. I end up removing quite a few colors that I've been kind of just lazily leaving in my palette, even though I know for a fact that I'm not going to use them, because I just, I spent a lot of money on these individual paints, and so I don't want to just toss them in a box where I know I'm never going to use them. But at the same time, this palette is supposed to be something that I gravitate towards and to be a reflection of the colors that I love and enjoy working with. And that's just not the case if it's full of colors that I don't like or don't use, right? So I was being really harsh and really stingy on myself. And that's just not the case if it's full of colors that I don't like or don't use, right? So I was being really harsh and really stingy on myself. I've got some Jane's Gray from Daniel Smith, 2 different Payne's Grays, I believe, 2 different Indigos. I've got some beautiful violets in there. Lunar Violet from Daniel Smith. I mean, honestly, Daniel Smith, if you want to go for like really unique, interesting colors, is like the best brand to buy from. I adore their pigments, but you just have to watch because a lot of them granulate, and I don't necessarily love that kind of texture in my art, so it's something that I kind of have to work around and figure out. I mean, you can see in the video here, I even break out a swatch sheet to start and to figure out exactly which colors I really need to get rid of and don't use, so that way I can continue to develop this palette into my perfect palette. I was trying so very hard throughout this whole thing to be very organized and clean and stingy and just very, I guess organized with the way that I was going about this, because it was really difficult for me to figure out, I don't know. I've always been kind of messy in the way that I organize things. That's not normally very organized, even though I really want to be an organized and structured person. So I'm really battling that with myself currently in this video and trying to figure out what colors need to go where to look, the most like appealing and cool and like aesthetic, and to make me want to open up this watercolor set and then when I look at it, want to paint something, to feel inspired by it. The hope is that it will house every single color that I love and adore to paint with. I really do get very meticulous with it though, which is kind of funny to watch back. I was just so serious about getting this palette organized in a way that I was happy with. And actually you can see here I am unboxing and kind of swatching some of the new watercolors I got. So I guess I didn't do that in that last video, but maybe I like showed them off or something. I'm not totally sure. I got a couple colors from Schminke and a couple colors from Roman Small, Gothite from Roman Small, and Titanium Buff, which I can't believe I didn't already have, but I'm so excited to have that color. And then I got this volcano like desert color, I think, from Schminke. It's from a set that's supposed to be limited edition, but I just fell in love with it and I had to have it. And then I also got like the volcano one, which is like a purpley color, which I also absolutely had to have. It's funny, honestly, watching myself like do this, like watching it back is making me want to pick up my watercolors again. I haven't been like, experimenting with them very much because I've been trying gouache because I think it's kind of the vibe that I want to go with at the moment. I like the opacity and it's giving me what I want from like replicating or attempting to replicate what I make in Procreate standpoint. But I miss my watercolor palette. It's so beautiful and full of so many wonderful colors. Gouache just doesn't get the same treatment. It doesn't have, like a quarter of the colors watercolor does, especially when it comes to like different brands like Daniel Smith and Schminke. Literally in a video that I was going to title like watercolor swatches, I don't get to the final, like my professional palette swatches until the very end of the video because I just spent so much time organizing them. They're like my little children, and I'm picking each one out specifically, and it has to have a reason to be there. And if it doesn't, then I had to sadly let it go and put it into the box of shame. But that's okay, because if I ever need it again, at least I have it in this tiny box. But here's where we really get into the fun part, because you can see all these beautiful blues and grays that I have. They're just my absolute favorite. It's why it takes up an entire third of the watercolors that I own, because they're just beautiful, stormy, moody colors. There's definitely a couple that I couldn't bear to part with. Delft Blue is one of them from Schminke. Now you'll notice, I suppose, throughout this video that the palette that I'm using is a Schminke palette, because I originally bought their, I believe, 48 color, I believe it was the 48 color set. I got the big set from Casey Golden. She kind of sold me on it, and I decided that I wanted it probably 6 years ago now, and slowly I've started kind of piecing it out and figuring out what colors I like and what colors I don't, and replacing them with colors that I do like, and that kind of led to this entire video, honestly, and being here where this palette has been picked apart to absolute filth. And I've filled it with a bunch of pretty damn cool colors that I am really fucking stoked about, honestly. I really think that I'm going to be able to create some pretty sick work with this watercolor palette, and I'm really happy that I'm being re-inspired to want to play with my watercolors again. That is very, very exciting for me. I'm not I don't know, it's almost making me like second guess pushing myself with gouache so much. I'm like, oh my god, should I have not done that? I don't know. I guess it's good practice or whatever, but I love this palette, and I love my handmade palette, and I'm just really excited. And I guess that's all you can really ask for, right? Is to be excited by the media that you have and to want to use it. Oh my god, I'm not sure I ever finished the original point I started this video with. So let me finish by saying that I generally use watercolors, gouache, colored pencils, and Copic markers. And maybe it would be cool to do like a short video here where I just kind of talk about my favorite colors, favorite Copics, and kind of like my favorite watercolors specifically, get into the little nitty gritties. So let me know if that's something that you guys would like to, be a part of, listen to me talk about, whatever it ends up being. I could break down more specifically the colors that I gravitate towards and what I like about the different media that I use. Oh, and then of course you can't forget my sketchbook. My sketchbook is a Be Creative sketchbook, like Buzz B, B-E-E. I love the paper. It's really sturdy. It works beautifully for watercolor and gouache, and honestly mixed media in general. It holds water like a champ. It dries, and it doesn't get all like flimsy and weird. It doesn't warp. And I feel like my colors are really vibrant, and I just have a great time with it. And it's something that I can get very easily through Amazon or Michaels, and I don't think that it's an exorbitant price. It's pretty reasonable, especially for the quality of paper. So if you'd like me to, maybe talk about the sketchbooks and papers that I do and don't like, and the media that I do and don't like, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Do the YouTube-y things like comment, subscribe, and hopefully I'll get around to making a video about that if that's something that anyone is interested in. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave off this video. If you don't know what to comment but would like to, feel free to comment algorithm. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and anyone who made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. It really, really means a lot, and I am super excited to talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!